Sonic the Hedgehog sucks. Sonic the Hedgehog has the most terminally online autistic community imaginable. And before the Mario Galaxy movie even came out, you had all these guys crawling out of the woodwork, you know, with their Sonichu profile pictures, just being like, yeah, the Sonic movies are way better than the Mario movies. They're so much more mature and adult and represent the characters better. And it's all like very try-hard bullshit like nonsense, okay? Because I've been calling this out since the Sonic the Hedgehog movies came out. Is that like they're very poorly conceived, they're poorly constructed. The whole idea of Sonic being in a real world setting, interacting with humans, is like one of the most basic like 90s mascot cartoon plots imaginable, right? There's no creativity, there's no originality, you know, Sonic's not likable, right? Like, but for some reason, Sonic fans are in this mindset that these movies are fantastic. And the reason for this, the real reason, is that Sonic fans are simply autistic and can't process that anything outside their narrow worldview is like better than their favorite blue rat. Okay, they can't process that the Mario movie is more successful than all three Sonic movies combined. They can't process that the Mario movies are higher quality, that they have better voice acting, better animation, that they understand that they're a better video game adaptation. You know, all they see is Sonic and Mario and immediately decide that Sonic has to be better because that's my thing. You know, I recognize that character. You know, I grew up with that character. You know, me and my friend Christian Weston Chandler used to make Sonic OCs on the playground all the time. You know, like that's their mindset. You know, that's their opinions. You know, that's what they do. Okay, that's the attitude of the Sonic fan base, is that they just blindly consume Sonic products and then just hype them up as the greatest thing ever, when in actuality, like, they're really not that impressive and really don't stick out. Like, not in cartoons, not in video games, not in movies, like nothing. You know, like, I actually went back and I decided to go ahead and watch like Sonic Sat AM and like The Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, you know, the cartoon series that people are like, you know, most familiar with, you know, from the early days of the show. I was really, really surprised with how low quality and basic it is. You know, there are so many other shows that are just better made, that have more interesting characters, better animation, that do the same thing but better. You know, even in like the confines of like children's animation, right? You know, I watched He-Man recently, and for the first time recently, and I was just like, you know, this is really good at what it does, right? Sonic is not like that. You know, the reason why Sonic Sat AM and The Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog were popular was purely because it had Sonic the Hedgehog in it, and people recognized it because of the video games and because of the ads. You know, people watch these shows just because they had Sonic in it. You know, like, that's very different from how Mario fans interact with Mario brands, where they play a game and really, really love it and enjoy it and start to care about the world, the characters, the settings, the ideas, like the game as a whole. Like, no actual Sonic fan cares about the actual games or the products. Like, the entire point of it, the appeal of the character, is to kind of relive the 90s and to pretend that you're perpetually 10 years old and to pretend that, like, Sonic is, like, you know, bigger than Mario, and, like, you know, that you're a cool kid for, like, liking Sonic and not Mario. You know, just like the Sega ads, like, sold you, okay? And this mindset has persisted throughout, like, the last 3 decades. You know, like, you see Sonic in media, the way he's discussed, the way he's talked about, and like you know, even after like Sega stopped producing consoles, you know, people had this mindset that, like, oh yeah, Sonic Adventure, it's like, it's the greatest thing ever, and that leads to situations where people go back and play the game and are just like, wait a minute, this is garbage. This doesn't make any sense. You know, it's nowhere near as good as Mario 64. You know, like, you see this all the time. You know, Sonic the Hedgehog is a brand that essentially exists purely on hype and vibes and no actual substance. Like, we're told with every major Sonic release that this is way better than Mario, that is cooler than Mario, that Sonic is better than Mario, and like, the simple fact of the matter is that it just never has been or ever will be. Sonic just isn't as well constructed as a brand as Mario. There's a reason why people always like throw around buzzwords like gotta go fast and like the fastest thing alive. Like it's not something that like is actually in the games, but it's something that like fans use as like kind of a rallying cry to try and downplay other superior mascot platformers like DKC or Kirby or whatever. Like it's shocking now, because I mentioned this like when Kirby and the Forgotten Land came out. Kirby is bigger than Sonic at this point. I believe Kirby Air Raiders actually did outsell Sonic Racing Cross Worlds. So, like, we're in this situation now where even, like, a B-string character like Kirby is, like, outperforming Sonic the Hedgehog, and yet Sonic fans are seriously coming out, like, arguing that Sonic is going to be better than Mario, that it's going to have a glorious comeback, that the movies in particular are better. And it's just something that I do think we actually do have to put our foot down on, like, and just stomp it to the dirt. Like, no, Sonic is not a good brand. It's not high quality. It's cheap. It's basically Mario for kids growing up in the ghetto. Okay, it's lower quality, it's for weak hardware, it's for people who don't know the first thing about video games. Okay, Sonic is like one of the most embarrassing things in the industry, and I think like one of the reasons why video games have not developed as an art form is just the pure inability from the audience to let go of a mascot character that clearly was never going to go anywhere. That peaked in the 90s with Sonic the Hedgehog 2 and has been on a downward spiral ever since. Like, I don't understand why people, like, seriously keep trying to say that, like, this is a series that people care about and that it's bigger than Mario and that it can compete with Mario when it never has and it never will. Like, this is something that I do think Nintendo fans need to be more vocal about, because I think we're at the point now where a lot of classic video game IPs, stuff like Castlevania, stuff like Mega Man, stuff like, Suikoden, Final Fantasy, Metal Gear, like, a lot of these classic video game IPs from the 80s are, like, pretty much dead now and are not coming back and are never going to have, like, the prestige and popularity that they used to. Like, I don't understand why we can't feel that way about Sonic. People are perfectly willing to acknowledge that, like, Metal Gear is never, ever going to come back without Hideo Kojima's involvement. So I don't understand why we can't just do the same thing for Sonic. I don't understand why we can't just condemn this blue rat, why we can't just, like, write this thing off and acknowledge, like, the reality that Sonic is not competitive with the second biggest video game property in the world. Okay, I don't understand why Sega fans seriously think the Mario movie is in competition with the Sonic the Hedgehog film, because in reality, it's not even close. Like, in reality, the Mario movies are going to become the highest grossing films ever, and Sonic is just kind of like there, like people are seeing like the trailers for it like during the Mario movie, and they're just like, I'm not going to go see that. That's the reality of Sonic now, is that it's always a brand that has lived in Mario's shadow.